Like, it's a good-looking mannequin, but I'm not going to be making out with it.
Be a crank. You could do a crank and a yank, and a crank and a prank, a yank and a prank. But can you prank and a yank?
Gil, holy shit. His son's name is Gil.
This is a Rip Torn situation going on right now.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Sequel. This is a special episode. 2 reasons. One is we're going to be looking back at all the sequels and the interviews, reminiscing about the year that was 2022. And when I looked at the movies that we covered, it was a rough year. It was a rough year, but a fun year. But another thing we have to celebrate 250 episodes. What do you think about that, gang? Thank you. We actually had a live audience for this one, so this is fun. And I can't discuss any of this without bringing in my partner in the sequel watching journey, Jamie Riccardi. Jamie, how are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm in shock. I mean, that's a lot of episodes. It
is,
and I think this year is, out of the 3 years, this has been the toughest one. I think
it has. When you look back at it was easy.
We started off
top
good.
4.
We started off well. And then it just really, it was like a roller coaster, right? We started going up the roller coaster. Once we hit the high point, it was all the way down. And it got worse and worse. I felt like it got worse and worse each time.
But we did discover, even in the bad movies that we're going to talk about, some of them, we did discover some really memorable characters. Or also we found out some actors that were in roles that we couldn't believe. Like when we found out, oh, that's another aha moment when we get to that. So me and Jamie are going to basically be going through, we like the top 4, the Mount Rushmore of different categories that we're going to go over. And I can't wait to get this started. So I guess we should start on the bottom of the list that we were going over. So what do you think we should start with? You pick the first category.
No, let's do worst sequels. I mean,
all right,
and there's
worst.
a lot, and there was a lot to choose from. I have to be honest with you. So I think we got to start with 4 and work our way down to the worst.
Oh, you have it in that order. I think I have that too. Okay, great. You go first. You reveal your list first, then I'll go, and then.
So I'm gonna say my 4th worst sequel was Puppet Master. Okay.
Wow.
And yes, and the reason why I say that is because I've never seen any of the Puppet Masters, but the fact that they had no motion for these puppets, they barely moved. It was a major disappointment for me. I always thought about the series, and it didn't feel like a Puppet Master movie. And really, the puppets aren't even in the movie that long. So they're number 4 for me. They're number 4 for me. Do you want to give me your 4th, or you want me to just go?
I guess I'll do that. My 4th in the picture, I would say Escape from LA. It was a huge disappointment from the first one, and there's so many good people in the movie. I think sometimes with me, I can really enjoy a bad movie and find silver linings with it. But I think when it's presented as oh my God, we have all these amazing people in it. You have Stacy Keach, you have Kurt Russell back. You have so many people in the movie, but just really fell super flat for me.
Oof. Didn't even make my top 4. So, okay.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Number 3 for me is Sharknado.
What?
Wait, you don't have Sharknado on your list at all?
No.
Oh my goodness. This movie, again, I've never seen any of the Sharknados, but this was awful. The CGI was awful. The acting was awful, and the plastic surgery on everybody was awful.
So my number 3 kind of is fitting. Mirror, Mirror 3. Even though Julio was honestly, he should have made my list for another top 4 we're going to do in a little bit. Maybe it'll be like an honorable mention because of how ridiculous his line readings were. But the movie just, I don't know what it was. The mirror was bleeding. We didn't know what was really happening. At one point, the mirror seemed like it was moving and chasing down Billy. I think it was it Billy Ball? I think it was Billy Baldwin's wife at the time. And then she gets tossed over a thing and dies. I don't know.
Okay. If you're putting that one number 3, I'm afraid I might have missed the movie here because I can't imagine what your top 2 are because, I think I have a feeling I'm missing a movie. But number 2 for me is Exorcist 2.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this movie was awful. I mean,
And long.
Long, awful. There's so many scenes in there were just so stupid. And, you know, I understand it's hard to follow the first one. The first one's a classic, you know, and it's still a classic today. One of the scariest movies of all time, especially for the time it came out. This was a horrible follow-up. It was just, a lot of it did not make sense. It was a bad movie.
Yeah, but it did give us the great line with Linda Blair when, what's her name from, Different Strokes? When she's like, why are you here? And she's like, oh, I used to be possessed by a demon. Oh, no, but it's okay. He's gone.
Like things like that. It was, I mean, wasn't there a scene where the priest just stared into the camera for a while?
No. There was not even the stare. No, she asked him about if he ever longs for a woman.
Oh, yeah. And there was that awkward pause.
He started staring at her. He said something, and then it cut. Linda Blair walked in. All right. So your number, my number 2 was Exorcist.
Oh, okay.
So we're same wavelength there.
All right.
Now, Jamie's number 1 worst sequel of 2022 is
Mirror Mirror. I mean, this movie was just plain awful. I mean, it was a rough one to watch. I think I had to watch it like 4 times, like stop and go so many times.
You mean, stop and go. You didn't watch it 4 times.
No. Not at all. It was bad. I know we have B movies. I don't know if there's like Z movies. This would be like the bottom of the bottom. It was just bad acting. I mean, dancing in a kitchen while you're making a sandwich. No one does that.
Oh, samurai!
or finding out what was in the cabinet that flew out or something like that, or wasn't there a bird or something, or what?
Oh no, it was like a dead stuffed bird that was sitting on top of the fridge.
It's ridiculous.
He touched it and then continued to make a sandwich. And cut it with a sword. He acted like a knife was a sword.
Yes. And for you not to put this number 1, I'm kind of nervous I missed out on a movie because I can't imagine a worse movie than this.
Now my worst sequel of 2022 is Puppet Master 10.
Okay. You know what? We have 3 of the same movies in the top 4.
We do. No, it's just that with this movie, again, not to pile on with it too much, but it's just that, I don't know, there's a movie that we just covered, Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. I know obviously the year gap and they don't do, stop motion anymore, but no CGI. Like we saw them move the puppets and they just weren't in it too much. I don't know. There was obviously the silver lining in it that we talked about a million times, which I think he might end up on a list later. We'll see. But so that was our.
You know what? Now, before I had a runner-up.
Oh, okay. Honorable mention.
Piranha. Piranha 2. That was close. That was a close one. That was close.
All right. Wow. So that was good. So now let's go to top 4 worst sequel characters of 2022. Jamie, kick it off.
All right. So I think you were definitely going to have a different category list for this one. So I'm going to start off with Ted McGinley in Back to the Minors. His overacting in this, like in the second half of the movie, was just so absurd that I just thought he was annoying. He got to a point where he was very annoying. So, and in this category, I'm going to break it up where they're just bad characters, like just awful people, and then awful characters where they're just annoying. He was annoying.
Okay. Yeah, I went with that they were the worst characters, not like acting. They were like the worst people. So I'll start with, I'm going to go with number 4 as in Raul, the hotel manager for Piranha 2. Like there was people dying and he did not care at all. He was like, let's still do this. Watch the grunion or whatever run on the beach. He had 0. And then he had the line about, are you trying to rip my balls off? Or like some weird line that he said. But yeah, so he's number 4 for me. Your number 3?
My number 3, the kid from Silent Night, Deadly Night. Because, and again, I know I discussed this during the sequel review, and he watched his father die by that toy, and then stayed silent after that when he could have avoided a lot more deaths if he just said, this is the toy that killed my father. Instead, he keeps the toy, he puts it on the shelf, and doesn't say anything until the end of the movie. And then, at the end of the movie, he's like, all right. Like he acted like it was no big deal this entire time.
Yeah.
So I feel that he was an awful, awful character.
Yeah, he said, "I'm not scared," and then walked back into the room by himself. So I'll keep in the same movie, and this isn't worse because of how terrible the person was. The mom from that movie, like you talked about a bunch in the review, is her yelling for her son that's not going to answer back. That was one thing. Boning a guy like a few weeks after our pal Van Quattro gets killed by a toy. And then just how she kind of was so angry, and you're like, oh, she's going to win me back as a great mom, the way she was yelling at Mr. Pedo. And then when he pulls out the bullshit excuse of, oh, we used to live in that house, I'd be like, no, you don't. I've lived here for so long. You never brought that up? Or no neighbor said, oh, Mr. Pedo used to live here. No, you were just like, okay, fine. That's it.
Yeah, she totally ignored that. I mean, she definitely is an awful person.
Yeah,
so, okay.
Person.
Number 2, you may be surprised in this one. I'm going with George Clooney in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Wow.
I felt like his character, like he tried too hard to be that womanizer, and I feel like it fell flat. It didn't work. I feel like he was trying to steal the screen time, and I didn't think he was funny, and I thought his character was just annoying. And then at the end of the movie, he became like geeky. Like he was just like he was like the stud in the beginning, and then became geeky, and just I don't know. I really didn't like his character at all.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's so funny, like what he became and what he is today, like directing, and then from talking to Steven Andrick, who did camera, cinematography, helped with casting, just his stories about how even then when Clooney was like in his mid-20s, was already thinking about like the next level of like buying scripts, getting ready to shoot features. So no, I can agree with that. And in the way he was singing, what was he singing? Susanna.
Yeah,
when he was walking back.
It's so corny. Just so corny. It was just,
Wow. Okay. So number 2 for me, this is again as a worst person. Bad News Cruz, Dr. Cruz from Friday the 13th, Part 7. Talking about a monster. He would basically lock this girl up for her entire life just to be able to test her telekinesis. And then let's bring her back all the way to the point that, oh my God, this is where your dad died. And then he covers everything up. She says, oh, I had this vision of this big man who had this weapon. He had a machete. He came out of the water and he stuck this thing into the house and he takes it and hides it.
Well, again, you want to give the drum roll? Because I'm going to give you my number 1.
Number 1. And worst sequel character, 2022.
Terry Kaiser. I had him as number 1. And,
Terry Kaiser for what movie? Because we had Terry twice this year.
Oh, and Friday the 13th. He, like you said, he basically tortured her. He tortured her, and like he had no intention to help her. He was just he might have been in 3 years one of the most evil, awful characters I think we've ever seen in a movie. And
now that you mention him, and then I can remember my other thing that was crazy about him when the mom was like, "Oh, she went to hang out with some friends," and he's like, "Oh, I hate to put her back in the penitentiary." He
had way too much control. And again, if you want to talk about awful people, the mom in that movie probably should be almost right up there because she let the doctor do whatever he wanted. So
yeah, honorable mention. She was pretty bad too.
Yeah. All right.
My worst sequel character, 2022, Leech Woman.
What? Okay. I mean, I'm going to argue on this one. That's the worst. You're telling me out of all the movies, that's your worst character?
No, this is the first one. The other ones are worst as in people in the movie. This is just worst as like a terrible character.
Wait. So you think that the jester puppet that just spins his head around was better than Leech Woman? Yeah.
Leech Woman spit out a leech and then maybe went and picked it back up. I don't know. It doesn't have
What did Jester do?
Change its face.
All right, okay. I mean, that's a surprise. I got to be honest with you, that's a major surprise.
That's what these award shows are for.
Okay.
Which I don't know if we're giving away awards, but Leech Woman, please come to the stage and speech. But yeah, so we got 2 categories down. top 4 worst sequels, top 4 worst characters, and just to do a little transition, just for like a little beat, maybe like 15, 20 seconds, is I gotta look back at some of our favorite songs of 2022, and it's gotta be this track from Ghoulies Go to College. I listen to it often. Doug and the Pontiacs, the best. This song is classic. An honorable mention of other songs that I don't have queued up. The other one has to be the Alabama song, Cheap Seats from Back to the Myers. I enjoyed that one, and the Goo Goo Doll song.
How about the Killer Tomato song? Did they get in the movie?
I have that for a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
Oh man, I love that song. I had to make sure I got that in for the 2022 year in review. And now let's go to, how about we do top 4 ridiculous scenes from 2022? So I get some really good ones on here. I was trying to think of which route, because ridiculous could mean so many different things. But I think I don't know. I think I have some good ones.
This is a tough one too, because there's so many. So I don't think I have it in any particular order, because I think there's so many, and I don't know which one's worse. And I just hope we have 4 different ones, so this way, because there's so many.
Yeah.
So okay. So I actually had 5.
That's fine. We can do one honorable mention.
No, although I can't read my other one, so we'll do the first one. Okay. So I have The Exorcist 2 with the priest trying to put the fire out with a crutch. And when he basically has many other options, he's in a basement. There's, I think, a fire extinguisher in the back and everything else, and he's smacking this fire, making it worse. He was absolutely no help whatsoever. He's using wood to put out fire.
I know, and the best was that he saw a photo that Linda Blair drew,
and he knew
and within
exactly.
seconds, he's like, "There's a fire here right now."
Yeah. Wait, it wasn't a photo. It was like a drawing. It was a cartoon drawing.
It was, yeah.
So, yeah.
And it was a tiny fire that was in like a little area that wasn't going to catch on fire. It was all surrounded by like metal and like concrete, but he thought that he had to do that.
Yep. Okay,
wait. So I'll start off with something really good too. How about, I think the most ridiculous scene I've ever seen in a movie. I'm just going to, no particular order, but I want to mention it. The escaping piranha from Piranha 2. The fact that the piranha was hiding in the body, killed the nurse, and then said, "Oh shit, I don't want to be found here in the morning," flies through the window.
And again, we don't know how he got inside the cadaver, right? Because he was too big. He was too big to go through his mouth. So how did he get in there? And then he was able to, he basically waited for the right moment, because they were talking down there. They were waiting. He waited for everybody to leave, except for that one person, right? The cleanup, the janitor, right? Didn't he pop out?
Well, no, when the nurse came back, it was like a nurse that came back in.
So like he knew exactly, or he or she knew exactly when to come out, and then he knew he had an escape plan already set, which we also discussed that it was far away from the water. So how long did it take him to get to the water? Was he just like flopping around all the way down? Like,
I wish they put that scene back in, him just flopping for a few minutes. Or if it was like a Rube Goldberg, he like flew out of the window, he landed on top of a taxi, he rolls off the taxi onto the back of some, like a basket of a bicycle, and then just keeps going and going until he falls in the water.
Well, I think it'd be funny if like the rest of the movie goes on, and then like at the end of the movie, you still see him flopping towards the beach, because he was still going the whole time.
Or he's the last piranha left. They blow up all the other ones, and they think it's over, and then there's one more.
That was a ridiculous one. That's a good one, but it didn't make my list.
Oh, it did not? Okay.
All right. My next one is Mannequin 2, making out with a mannequin.
Oh, okay.
And I'm gonna add part 2 to this part of our discussion. Also, falling in love with a tomato. Okay. So they're kind of the same category, the same ridiculous scene. And I know we discussed, is it more embarrassing to fall in love with a mannequin or a tomato? But like, both of them are pretty ridiculous. I don't know. I would be curious if anyone who works at a department store, if they've ever seen a hot mannequin. I guess if they think it's a hot mannequin. Have you ever decided to just kiss it? Like that's kind of weird. I don't know.
Is that on the application? Like they do it, be like, "Hey, no, this is a formality. Here's a mannequin," and they pull it in. Thanks, Bob. Do you think this mannequin's hot? And then if somebody says anything other than "Why would you ask that?" you're fired. You're not going to get the job.
I just find that bizarre. And now that I think about it, did the mannequin have lipstick and like makeup on? Yeah, I think so.
I think there was lipstick.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
There's no makeup on mannequins in department stores.
No, they took all the hot ones out because people were making out with them.
Or they took them home with them. Yeah.
That's the only way they can keep their mannequins in the store. They made them ugly.
Oh my goodness!
They took away their arms and their legs, so they're really just torso.
Right.
Torso.
And then again, go to the tomatoes. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that you actually there was a girl that turned into a tomato. All right, so she's a tomato right now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe she's never going to turn back to a person. So is he in love with the tomato if she doesn't turn back? Is he still going to like take care of the tomato as if it's a real person?
Well, she is a real person because remember at the very end, whatever the button was that they hit turned her into
But he doesn't know that. So he just knows she turned into a tomato. So let's just say she doesn't turn back, right? There's no way for
Oh, I know you mean. I know
so he knows that
okay.
she's still a tomato. Like, is he going to dress the tomato up, take the tomato out to dinner, and set that the tomato, like, is he still in love with the tomato, knowing that it's a person inside there? Like,
I think so. He was a little crazy, so I could see him carrying around the tomato, singing to the tomato, and then they have an adoptive brother in FT, man. FT.
Okay. That is true. I forgot about FT.
FT did not make my list, but talk about one of the best.
You know what? Honorable mention. FT,
honorable mention. FT.
FT was probably one of the best characters in the whole movie.
He made some sounds. He rolled. He did a lot.
He had more emotion than any of the puppets in Puppet Master.
He did. And then, how about, remember, he couldn't go down the stairs, right? He couldn't go down the stairs, but then he rode a motorcycle.
Ridiculous. It's so
falls down the stairs, just rolls, and then he rides a motorcycle into a bush. Oh, man, that was a good one. So I'm going to save the one that I think is the best for last. But next is, I kind of mentioned it before, just because how ridiculous it was, and we saw it multiple times throughout the movie, was the mirror bleeding in Mirror Mirror 3. Because we had no idea what it was. Like later, at the end of the movie, we saw that, I can't think of his name, Billy Drago was like in the mirror. So we're like, okay, maybe it like eats him. But the other people, we had no idea because we saw Billy Baldwin's ex-wife die, like fall over and like crack her neck. And we saw other people get stabbed, but somehow the mirror is bleeding without eating people. Is the mirror self-harming? I don't know what the mirror
is. The
doing.
Mirror alive? Is it like it's just so, yeah, that movie is so bad. I mean, again, it really it makes the what was the movie we watched? My Little Pony or Talking Pony or whatever.
Talking Pony. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes that one look good. I mean, really, and that was a bad movie, but Mirror Mirror has to be, I think, the worst movie we've covered.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So I have Predator 3 or Predator, or is Predators? It was Predators.
I think it's the Predator that we covered.
The Predator. The kid shooting the Predator's gun into the house and blowing it up.
Killing the people.
And killing everybody inside. I don't think there was any emotion after he did it. First of all, the fact that he was able to use that Predator gun somehow, the fact that he's walking around with it within seconds, but then after he blows up the entire house, which who knows how many people are in there, he just basically walks away. He just murdered a family. And I mean, now granted, they look like they were a bunch of druggies, so maybe a family of crackheads, but he basically murdered who knows how many people, and he just walked away. Nothing. No one was worried about it. No other neighbors came out. Not one neighbor came out. No one heard it. No one seen it. But yeah, that to me, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, and the fact that the Predator gun is so sensitive that it can understand like English, and that a threat from like just him calling him like a punk or something or a loser, and it murders the guy in the balcony.
We're assuming this is high-tech technology that. How old is this kid? 12 or whatever his age was. He's able to figure it out and use it, or just it works that easy like that. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. No way. Most ridiculous scene for me would number 2, I guess, would be seeing the millions upon millions of Tara Reeds at the end of the last Sharknado. It was just a lot. Like seeing her over and over and over again, and her floating head, and there's so many iterations of her at the end of that movie.
Wait. You think that's more ridiculous than the floating head that was talking the entire movie?
that counts. That's in there. That's one of the.
I have to be honest with you. I think any scene in that movie can make this list.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of ridiculous scenes that we've watched in all these movies, but if you had to pick one movie that had the most ridiculous scenes, I would say Sharknado. Might be up there. Might be up there.
3.
That is true. That's a winner. That's the number one.
Uncle Hulk Hogan.
Oh my goodness.
Grandma Hogan.
No, it wasn't Hogan. It was wasn't it? What's his name?
One of us said Hogan, and then one of us said
cowboy.
Sam Elliott.
Yeah, Sam Elliott.
Yeah. All right. So I know we're not going in any particular order, but I'm really loving this drum roll button. We got to do it. So, Jamie's number one most ridiculous scene from 2022.
I'm going Ghoulies Go to College. And I'm going to say the fact that they found clothes is that what you have? That's yours?
But it's so good now.
I mean, these ghoulies are how tall? I mean, they look like the size of, they look smaller than Chucky.
Maybe like 2 feet.
Yeah, okay, 2 feet. But somehow they're able to find clothes. I mean, and we're not even talking about we're talking about shirts, socks, shoes, hats that fit them perfectly at a college dorm. A college dorm. So what's at this college that this fraternity has a bunch of doll clothes? That what are they doing there, and why do they have doll clothes?
Dolls. They play with dolls. But I love that it was a pile of clothes that fell on them. They shaped the pile, and then they come out fully clothed.
They did like a Superman. They did like a Clark Kent. They go in the pile and they come out with clothes on.
The best.
And the fact that it was a pile of clothes. So I think there was regular clothes mixed in there. So why were there doll clothes mixed in with their athletic clothes?
They don't separate whites, kids' clothes, dolls' clothes. Throw it all together. Wow, that was a good one, man. That was such a funny scene. That movie was really a delight. Really, when you think about how much silliness that movie was, it was good silliness. But so my most ridiculous scene from 2022 is Aliens. And I know this is an odd one to say, but the fact that they had that 57-year-old grudge on Ripley, who they weren't even happy that she survived. They were pissed that she crashed the ship and she destroyed all it. She could be dead. But no, they basically sort of accidentally figured out it's 409 or not 409 Post-it notes. They were trying to make this glue, and the glue then turned on to be oh man, we can use this for Post-it notes. New invention. They invented how to keep a woman looking the same for 57 years. They're nah, screw you.
That's the trope in every movie when the hero saves the day. Think about Bruce Willis. How many times has he saved the day and they hate him every movie? The start of every movie, they hate him. They're
McClane, here's the bill. Here's a bill, McClane.
Every time he saved them so many times. So same thing with Ripley. What she did, she saved, and they're still angry. They weren't even. No one was around when this happened.
No, they have no stake. No stake. So, the president of that company was not even born yet.
So then, now that makes you think: how do they know about it?
Well, I'm sure it gets passed on. Maybe it's a story that tells. Maybe they
passing it on? Who's passing it on? She was the only one left.
No, I'm talking about the people that work for the company. They get older. They have new hires. They go through the HR training. They say, hey, guys, we like to end it with this. You ever see this bitch right here? We hate her, and we got a bill for her. Which, 57 years ago, what is that even worth? Would that still be operational?
Yeah.
The technology is probably so dated. But you know what technology does work? The thing that kept her alive for 57 years.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That's a good one. That was a little obscure. I thought you would go a little more crazy, but that is a good one. That's a good one.
I'm not that crazy. Not that crazy.
All right.
So
let's go biggest aha because let's leave the top 4 characters and sequels for the end.
All right, good. All right.
Top
so 4 aha moments,
and I only have 2. So, and I'm sure the first one we both have. I'm going
Okay.
Pino,
okay.
Pino, and what's his name? Geppetto, whatever, Petto.
Pino and Petto.
And that's more of an aha moment on you because you didn't get the Pinocchio part, and
Nope.
I think your reaction was right on
That
par.
was real because I would think
It was real.
Pino. I know his name's Pinocchio. Maybe I think I say it Pinocchio. Maybe I pronounce it Pinocchio. Tomato. And when they said Pino, I just never put that together.
You know what it is? I think because they use the word pedo, dealing with toys and kids in that movie, you think of Geppetto, but you're also thinking pedo. You know the way they're
Pedophile,
using
yeah.
it, right? And so it's like like it kind of. I think the pedo stands out more than Geppetto. And like,
Yeah.
and you could put the two together, Geppetto and Toymaker, but I think the pedo stands out. And I think that's why you didn't see the Pinocchio. I don't know why. It just popped in my head. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, that was a good aha.
So here's another. This is like an aha, like we had like Meatballs 3 when we figured out Rudy, or like a lot of the other ones that we had in prior years. But here's one that I think is still wild. That like Richard Kind was the voice of the cat Ghoulie in Ghoulies Go to College. It's not like a super aha moment of figuring something out, but still, I still can't believe that he's the voice of that.
No, that's a pretty good one.
creature.
That's a pretty good one.
Like if I ever met him, I would get an 8x10 of the cat Ghoulie and get him to sign it. I would have to do that. But
all right, now you have one more left, right?
I have one more left that's legit. I would say the last Sharknado. Don't tell me you have that one.
Yes, I do.
Really?
Yes. Well, and I think this is more on me because I mean I know we both. First of all, my memory is so bad, so I didn't even realize like it's Finn and Gil, and like again your reaction because you told me Finn, I didn't put that together, and then we got that, and then you said something like, "Wait a second, Gil," and then you were like, again you put it so Finn and Gil for Sharknado as their names definitely was a haha.
Oh my god! I'm trying to think of any other ones. I guess there wasn't any moments throughout like this year of movies that we had anything like that. I think the only one. This isn't aha. And we're not going to start a whole new category now. But like, Freddy's dead. Like we're like the end of that movie. Were they dead after that car accident? Because the fact that all the stuff that was happening, and then when she was in the dream and out of the dream, it made zero sense. The fact that when she woke up, the their 3D glasses reappeared on her face.
Yeah. I mean, that would be more like questionable moments than
questionable moments.
But yeah, I mean, I think like the movies we watched this year, they really weren't the creative writing for aha. Like like except for like those two movies. Rip Torn to me is one of the biggest ones we've ever had. That's So yeah, so that was that. So all right. I think this is going to be interesting in these top four.
Top four. So did you write down interviews at all?
I did. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I did.
Let's do a little top four interviews, and as we go to that, we'll do a little transition song from Return to the Killing Tomatoes. I'm just gonna go to the part where they edit it in. This is the second time they play in the movie.
When those big busted tomatoes go to the beach and take their
tops off. God, it's so good.
They were like making that song up as they go along. Like they had someone playing the music and they had some guy just take the top off.
Amazing.
So ridiculous.
And take their tops off.
All right.
Okay. So top four interviews.
No particular order.
This is so hard.
Yes.
Like really, this is so hard because in a year, 52 weeks. Obviously, we had the month where my son was in the NICU. He's doing great. We had that month that we did some repeaters that we put out, but it was pretty cool because there's a lot of people that didn't hear, like Vernon Wells, Lisa Wilcox. I think that's all we had to do was a month worth. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no particular order, and this was hard because I think all the interviews were awesome, right? I mean, everybody told such amazing stories and, gave us their time to do it and, so appreciative. So I just picked four that kind of stood out a little bit. And when they stood out, they were for different reasons. Right. So I'm going to start off with, again, no particular order. Steven Kutcher. He's our bug man.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
like to me, like, again, he's the bug man of Hollywood, and how, like, to get someone like that, that's worked on so many movies, and really, you could tell he really enjoys what he does. And if you watch the video with Doug, he's got bugs around him.
Rosie the Tarantula was our first arachnid guest on the podcast.
Yeah, I think that was just, a very interesting and very different interview.
No, 100%. I have that on there since there's no particular order. Just to piggyback on what you just said, was I think the thing that was even cooler in a way was just the way he sort of like found us, which I think is pretty cool. Like the way he was watching Teen Wolf 2 on TV. It was the end of the scene where when they're putting the fleas on Jason Bateman in class. And then he was like, I want to watch the full scene. So he goes on YouTube, types in Teen Wolf 2, somehow finds us, watches the whole review because he got to the point that we talked about the flea scene. It's not like we had the video playing. And it was just the video of us, but no like video of the movie. He watched, listened, heard us, emailed me like this long thing. Then I was like, man, I'd love to talk with you. And boom. And the fact that he had the connection with Brian Thompson, when Brian Thompson talked about the bug guy that drove a bug to the set of Fright Night 2.
That's
and
amazing.
Me and Steven talked about that. But no, just what he's done. Spider-Man, like to make an actual spider fall on Tobey Maguire in that first movie, like what went into that shot, how important that was, and just how much he loves it.
He loves it, and again, I can't imagine. Like, first of all, I don't know how imagine like you start your career off, but then you end up being the bug man of Hollywood. Because it's amazing. So so my next one is, and the only reason is because he played such an iconic character. So I'm going Brad Lurie.
Yeah, nice.
And Michael Myers. I mean, how many times you can interview Michael Myers, and we've interviewed Leatherface. We've interviewed Freddy Krueger, and kind of like didn't we do his? Well,
oh my gosh! Wait, again with this?
I know.
This is Jamie's memory.
It's my memory. No. Okay. All right. Forget him. So, but it to me, to get such an iconic character and just hear their side of the story, like I thought that was very cool, and that to me is up there.
Yeah, and to just a perfect transition, the fact that we got him and he almost played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, and then I got to talk with Ken Keir Jr., who played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, and obviously his credits along the way, being the stunt coordinator on like X-Files, so many big shows and movies he was in over the year. He was the helicopter pilot in Ace Ventura 2, so he had some great stories about like filming that scene. But again, the movie that I feel like I won't stop doing this until we talk to almost everybody that's alive that worked on it. He worked on Jason Takes Manhattan. He almost played Jason in that. But since he was local to Vancouver, he was a stunt coordinator, and then even gets killed by Jason as the cook in the diner in New York. So no, that was definitely a special one too. Nicest guy ever, and he connected that with Brad because him and Brad were buddies. So that was pretty cool.
Was he on your list too?
Ken was on my list.
Oh, okay.
That was my transition.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So my next one is Stuart Pankin, and to me, again, he's iconic because I've seen him like in so many things growing up, and like he's an iconic character actor, and just first of all, his role in Mannequin is awesome, but he just again he's in so much that a lot of times when we interview people, a lot of times like we look at their IMDb and we can see, oh wow, they did this and they did this. Stuart Pankin, you've seen so many things that he was in, and it's just without even looking him up, you're like, oh yeah, I remember him in this movie. And he was awesome.
No, 100%. And again, perfect compliment. I feel like we're like cheating off each other on a test, but not perfectly cheating good. But Peter Jason, like obviously Pankin is somebody I loved, vicious boss, and I love to be able to pick his brain about it, like his characters, like him. And then his voice roles that he had over the years too, like Dinosaurs, Earl Sinclair, like so cool that he was able to do that. But Peter Jason, man, his buddy, that they became good pals on Arachnophobia. And like inseparable ever since. Peter had some unreal stories that another guy that you can only go by so much when it comes to the IMDb. Like, that's all we really see. His commercials, the fact that he was like the first man ever to show his nipple on TV. He got like that award from that woman's state prison because of that Right Guard ad. He talked about playing Tarzan, all the ridiculous commercials that he shot when he lived in Jersey for like 6-7 years. And then also the stories about nobody would know that he did the reshoots for the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, he was playing the heavyset Nazi on the submarine. And then he had the story about fishing and Spielberg being jealous because he couldn't catch anything. And he sent in his guys to go get all the fishing poles in a boat. And then they all hung out. Like, that is the stuff that you love. And the guy still loves doing what he does. Like, it's unbelievable. A jock, another a theme that we've had a lot, jock turn actor because of a girl. I think 20 people that we've interviewed has done that. Like, even from the beginning, I remember like, I wasn't really into acting, but man, the really hot chick.
Listen, love does strange things.
Yep. It does.
All right. My last one, again, no particular order, is Rico Ross.
Rico, yeah.
Yeah, playing two iconic characters in two iconic movies. Obviously I had a longer list, but Death Wish 3 and Aliens. Again, to be in movies like that are so well known, and to get someone like that, I put him like in my top 4.
Yeah, and he was so close to being there when we did that Death Wish 3 reunion.
That would have been iconic.
Yeah, that'd have been so cool to see them all together. But no, he had some great. Another guy, the fact that he was like a model, traveling the world, and just how he got the role in Death Wish, because he didn't want to play a thug on TV, so he went to London to study in like Shakespeare theater, and then from there he's in Dirty Dozen 2, and then he got Full Metal Jacket, but they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't give him a definitive time of when the shooting was going to be done, and he chose Aliens, and he made the right choice.
Oh, and just the actor Bronson. I mean, how many actors in Hollywood could say they acted with a legend? That's awesome. So, and
you get pushed off a building and then turned into a dummy by a legend. But the fact that they made him actually step up to the ledge with a rope tied to him, it's pretty frightening, because I think if you watch the scene, you don't even see him go up. They like just cut really quick. Like, you don't even see his foot step up. But yeah, no, that was a good one, man. That was really good. This is so hard to pick a fourth one. But again, I think it's more of like the story about how we get the people too. And this is another one that a social media one, Patrick Laberto. Patrick, man, Mookie. The fact that I called him Mook on Twitter, and he goes, "It's Mookie. Mookie." And then he's like, "I don't call you Sequy." And then from there, we formed a bond.
He was my almost made a top 4. That was honorable mention for that one.
That's awesome. Like just being a child actor, the transition from being on Little House on the Prairie for so many years, and then that awkward, like he even said, it was so hard to transition from being a kid to an adult. Like he also
got shafted in the movie. He got shafted in the movie.
He should have got the pranking crown. And he did appreciate that. I said when we did our review, that was one gripe we had at the end of the movie. Skip should have gave you the pranking crown.
You know what? Skip should have been one of the worst characters just for that moment.
But he got Eva LaRue at the end of the movie.
That is true.
But he's the king yanker, cranker, and pranker.
Yanker, right? Is it yanker?
Yeah. Well, they said all 3. Prank, yank, and crank. Okay. They use all of them. But no, his stories are so cool. And I love that he loves old Hollywood. The fact that me and him were like messaging back and forth when the WB lot was getting knocked down. And then he was telling me stories about when he got to set one day at Little House on the Prairie. And the guy who played the Tin Man, I can't think of his name right now, and the original Wizard of Oz was a guest star that week. And he took him into this room and then took a few of the actors that day and lifted up like a garbage can. And then underneath was the Yellow Brick Road.
That's awesome.
Which is like,
that's very cool
to see that is like, it's just amazing. But yeah,
that's awesome.
And then there's so many other ones, like the other 21 that we did throughout the year.
Like I said,
many
every
amazing
one of them.
Stories. Yeah.
I think every interview you've done, just there's like a moment in the interview that was just like, just like awesome. And again, just thankful. I mean, really, and I have to honestly say, every person that we interviewed, they all seem to really enjoy the conversation. And, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. It's all about doing homework and just telling them, like, this is really, like, these are things that people don't talk about. Like, actors don't get together and talk about, like, hey, how'd you start? So it's like a good, like, kind of like, hey, remember how it all began? And then they're like, oh, my God, I haven't thought about this in 30 years. Like, I think Eric Roberts is the first person that ever said, like, wow, hon, that was a nice trip down memory lane. And then, like, that's what I want. And that's what we want out of this when we talk to these people, getting these really cool stories. I don't care about, like, oh, remember that scene with Tom Cruise? Like, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. It's more about, like, how'd you get started, like, that first time that you felt like you made it? Like, what was that moment? And
think about it this way. Like, any interview they do, they probably talk about the same movies every single time. So I'd rather hear the stories that I haven't heard before. You know what I mean? Yep. So, and I think that's what it is. I think, and they enjoy, because they have multiple, every movie set is going to have a story, so, but, when they go interviews today, it's always about the most recent movie, tell us stories there, but I want to hear the stories that happened in the beginning. Like, those are probably more funny than the ones that they're doing now. So.
Yeah, like Ron Schmidt, another just honorable mention, just because funny story, the way I connected with him when I emailed him about, like, Ghoulies Go to College, because he worked on that. That was one of his earlier cinematography gigs. And he writes back, oh, man, I'm the king of the sequels that should have never got made. It's not like I talked a lot about The Shield. Of course, I asked about The Mist, but I wanted to hear about, like, his Roger Corman days and working on Ghoulies Go to College, because that's, like, when you cut your teeth and you're learning everything. So,
sure.
That was good to look back. When I was looking at the list earlier, and every so often, like when I was on a train back from New York like a month ago and I missed my train and it took forever. So I had my old interview book and I was going through them and just like looking at these old notes that I make along the way while I'm talking or questions that I had prepared. It's really cool. Like I get emotional thinking about it because like looking at them, I can like remember like sitting in the spot, thinking about like hearing these heroes like Sadler, all these people, man.
Oh, it's just
so
amazing.
good. So good. So, so here we are, last two categories, and it's all about the good things.
Okay.
And no more bad things.
No more bad things. This is our top 4 characters, and I think we may have some different ones here.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So I'm going to lead off, and this is because this character is one of my favorites in all his movies, and I'm going Freddy Krueger.
Whoa!
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going Freddy Krueger. You know, I'm a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan. You know, we've covered a lot of his movies, and I just, you know what? I just think he's a funny character. He's, you know, it's very different in each movie, and I just think he's definitely one of my top 4 characters that we have. And I'm still trying to get him on this podcast, so hopefully one day I can get him. But yeah, Freddy Krueger is my number 4.
Yeah, I would say in Freddy's Dead because you got so much silliness, but then in the same thing, we saw like him before he became Freddy, like all burnt and as this like stalking people in their dreams. He was so frightening when he murders the mom.
Oh yeah,
in front of the little girl.
But and as much as it was silly, it's still like it was so silly that sometimes you laugh at some of the things he did, you know,
so good.
And it's just funny. I mean, you know, him playing video games. I mean, it became a comedy more than a horror. And, I appreciate his humor. You know, his humor is always funny in all the movies.
Now I'm playing with power.
And I'll be honest with you, I think he got shafted in Freddy vs. Jason. I think he would molt, Jason. But that's my point.
Well, no, not in the regular role because he's very weak because he's...
I know,
well,
but
they're both dead.
Yeah, they're both dead. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Number 4 for you?
So number 4 for me, again, this is not, you're not going to probably like this. You're not going to like this. But Sarge.
You're going to say Mirror?
And,
Sarge.
No, Sarge and Puppet Master 10, because not even if the movie was great, bad, good, whatever. But it's so cool when you see somebody have, not like he had a little bit of lines. He had a lot of lines. Nailed every line. There's not one that I said like, oh, this guy's phoning in. It was just so funny. Like when he said like jerking my button or no, jerking my bopper. Like, I'm like, what is this guy talking about? But he was so good. And the fact that how disgusted he was when he had to look at a suit, like the suit wasn't even on him yet. He saw it and he was like almost about to vomit with the idea of wearing a suit.
No, that's a great one. I mean, you have a terrible movie, but you have a character that stole each scene he was in, and he was the bright and the only bright spot in that movie. But no, that's a good one. That's a good character in a movie. So that's a good one. All right. My number 3 is Mickey Rooney. Okay. and you know, to me, the movie is horrible, right? Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. It's a horrible movie, but we disagree.
It's good,
but he crushes everything. Yeah. He literally, he goes for an Oscar-worthy performance. I mean, the way he talks to his son and like his fight with his son. I mean, Mickey Rooney, first of all, is like 75 years old in this movie.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably only like 5'2". You know, he's a small guy, and he just like he's an animal. I mean, he's screaming the whole movie. He's really acting hard in this movie where the acting is terrible. And I feel like he really does a good job. I mean, I'm surprised he's in this movie, especially after we heard that he was so against the first movie coming out and, you know, having a killer Santa Claus, but he crushes it. I mean, so I thought he was a good character in this.
That's a great choice. Really good choice. All right. I like that. I don't think we're going to have any matches, honestly. I think maybe one as I look at my list, but so I'll go number 3, top 4 sequel characters of 2022. Dee Snider as the sheriff. You have that?
He's my number 2.
Okay, yeah. Dee Snider is the sheriff in the last Sharknado. Like, man, talking about a guy that's barely in the movie. You know what's really funny? So preparing for this, I was looking for his character name to see if there was a name. Just sheriff. But when you search the movie and you look at IMDb, 3 of the reviews on there say, like, this movie's terrible, but Dee Snider crushes in the scene. And the fact that we tweeted at him saying how great it was and he loved playing this role.
He, you know, the role like, if you didn't know it was a Sharknado, you would think this is like a serious movie because he played it very serious, the role. And like, I would love to see him in a Western. Like, I think he would crush it. And I agree with you. Like, that's why he's my number 2. I thought he absolutely was awesome. And I just wish there was more screen time for him. Less Tara Reid and more Dee Snider.
The only thing I want to add is I think if we wrote the movie, the only scene we'd add is that he would shoot Niedermeyer, who played the dad. And we're not going to take. If he just randomly showed up and he shot him, that would have been pretty good. But
that would have been funny. Yeah. So he's my number 2. So
I stole your thunder a little bit, right?
You did a little bit.
Yeah. So
I was
how
excited.
about...
Hold on. I was very excited to say that one, but I had a feeling that you had him on the list.
Okay. Let me. So it's fair. Let's let Jamie reveal his number 1, just in case my number 2 is the same one. So let's do a little drum roll for Jamie here. Wait. So Jamie's top sequel character for 2022 is.
Okay, so on this one, there's a lot of characters that stand out. Because like a Sarge but this is probably one of the top iconic characters of all time, like in movies, franchises, and I'm going Ripley.
Okay.
I mean, listen. I mean, you can't think aliens. You can't think female hero without thinking Ripley.
Yeah.
You know, in any movie, and like for a movie that really there's tons of men in all the whole franchise, and she's the one that kicks the alien's ass every single time.
Yep.
She's tough as nails. I mean, she really, to me, is one of the best characters of all time. Like Ripley is just a badass, and to me, I'm going serious in this one. Like I'm not finding that silly character, but I think she was awesome, and I think she's a top character we've had.
That's a great one. And you know what's funny if you think about it? Why? I wonder if she just didn't want to do it anymore. Like, I know she did Aliens 3 and she did Aliens Resurrection, but in between, nobody wanted to convince her to be like a Rambo in a type of movie.
I know.
Or like a Commando-ish kind of movie, because she could have done that. But I think she like more comedies, drama, serious kind of stuff.
She did a mix of stuff, but I just think, you know what? She's she's tall. She's like, such a strong presence. I'm surprised. I mean, I agree with you. I think she could have done more. So, but yeah, to me, again, Ripley is like, she's up there on the list of Rambo and Commando. I mean, Ripley is, probably the top female hero of any movie.
Yeah, I think you can't argue that. Ripley number 1. Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
You know what's really funny? When I tell you my number 1, You're gonna laugh because I really thought you were gonna say it, and your little like preamble before that really was making me say like, "Whoa, Jamie!" Like really?
Uh-oh.
But so my number 2.
Wait,
Frank,
drum roll.
Well, it's number 2. I don't drum roll. For
Oh,
number
okay.
2.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 2, Frank Grillo in The Purge Anarchy.
Okay.
I loved his character. I could watch so many, and it's pretty cool that he has a bunch of movies coming out that are going to be like mainstream type movies. So, and I personally have to go back and watch a lot of his movies that are like on like that are out now that he plays an action role because he's so good in this movie.
He's so good. He's so good in any movie, and I'm trying to get him. So I'm hoping that we could somehow get him. Yeah, his movies are great, and yeah, you know what? To me, he's always played the side character, right? He's always played like part of the team. He's always like that guy as part of the team, but he can totally control a movie. And no, that's a great choice. That's a good one.
Frank, if you're listening, dude, we need you on this. I'd love to pick your brain about your career because you really cut your teeth and you earned having like a role and like the roles that are coming up for you. Because this movie, you play such a torn character, and it's so cool as a viewer, and then the other characters in the movie, how it's not really too revealed, and how you sort of open up to the female characters that are trying to like, hey, come on, why don't you tell us what's going on? And then, great character. Wow. So number 1. So there's a little caveat because it's kind of like there's 2 people for this. So the top 4 sequels, the number 1 sequel character, 2022. It's 2 people because they're related, so you have to go with them. And that's why your soliloquy was like blowing my mind because you're talking about the greatest franchise. Ethel and Junior, Friday the 13th, a new beginning. Goodness. Talk about 2 characters that ruled. Like, honestly, the lines they had, her trashing her son, spitting in the pot roast, like, unbelievable. Like, so great. And his death is amazing.
Well, his death is iconic. I mean, like, you think of Friday the 13th, you totally remember that scene.
Yeah.
And, and I think I said this when we did the review, I could watch a movie on those 2. Like, they were so like every scene they were in, they was just so like awesome, funny to watch, and like, that's a good choice. That's a really good choice.
Where's her husband? Like, where'd he go? I would have left too, definitely. But where is he? Did she kill him? I could see her kill him.
He's probably in the pot. He's in the pot. They're eating him. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Like some rando shows up at the window and he's like, yeah, well, I just
want to no, the husband is the guy that came. Wasn't it his husband that came and knocked on the door?
No, that was just some rando that said I wanted food I'll do some work to fill my belly, and she's like, all right, go do this, and then I'll fill your belly up later. And I'm like, do people do that? Do people show up at people's houses and say, hey, I'll do some yard work if you fill my belly?
Well, first of all, that's the only house in the area.
Well, besides the psychiatric place and the trailer park, that's right down the road. Oh man, that was good. So top 4. We're at the culmination of this as we look back at 2022, which we talked about earlier, was not the greatest year for movies that we covered, but it was the greatest year for doing reviews because some of these movies were so much fun to do. Some movies were more fun to watch, but no matter what, we have so much fun when we're doing this.
And, when you do top 4 sequels, so I would say we definitely did a lot. We did more bad movies than good this year. I mean, way more. So I think finding the top 4 sequel wasn't as difficult. However, you know what? Maybe another category next year is like a sequel, top 4 sequels that were fun to do. Because I think there's a difference, but I'm going top 4 sequels. So and we may have the same ones in here. Although your taste in movies are very different than mine. So
yeah.
All right. So number 4, I'm going Hangover 3.
Oh, okay.
And not that it's a great movie, because I mean the first 2 are great. Third one gets a little silly, but there's so many funny parts to it. And what I think, again, when you're choosing through the movies that we've watched this year, we don't have too many to choose from. I think it's a worthwhile sequel based on the bunch that we've done, and I think it deserves a top 4.
Yeah, John Goodman returning to his roots as a bad guy. I think that was pretty good. I like
Zach Galifianakis is so funny. So it's
ad-libbing, trashing Sandra Curry. And she was
a little
like,
too much
"Why
chow.
do you-"
A little too much chow. But again, it was funny.
It was really funny. So my fourth, I think our list is going to be totally different. So my number 4 is Return of the Killer Tomatoes. I think that is one of the best spoof movies I think I've ever seen. Like that's up there for me with, obviously nothing beats Airplane and like the first 2 scary movies, but like, man, so good. So that's like a movie that I've seen bits and pieces over the years, but when you really dive in and you take notes and you discuss it like we do, I love this movie. So many great scenes, so many, FT, man.
Yep. All right. So number 3 for me, you may disagree on this one. And I know I talked about it before we did it. And I think it was better. It wasn't as good as I remember it being, but it was still, again, based on the movies we did this year. And I love Jim Carrey in it. I'm going Batman Forever.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jim Carrey crushes the Riddler. I mean, absolutely crushes the Riddler. Tommy Lee Jones is great. I mean, there's so many questions with the movie because he played more of a Riddler than I think like a Two-Face. Like he really wasn't Two-Face like in the way he played it, but it was definitely entertaining. And my number 3.
Yeah. And Nicole Kidman, and then that's where we talked about why don't they lock the tower, because anybody can go up there and touch the bat signal, and so much. Much.
I mean, Gordon running around he's living in the tower because he's coming out in his pajamas.
He lives there. Let the guy go home, Batman. Hire like some help at night to go into the tower that, you can get to the roof. Anyone can go to the roof. So
anyone.
Why do you need him? Why do you need him in the slippers and his robe?
And anyone can use the bat signal.
Nope. Password's 1 2 3 4. Anybody can get into it. So for me, number 3, it's a movie that came out in the 90s, but really captured what you and I love about 80s movies. Mannequin 2. I think honestly, that movie really had like everything that I look for when I watch like a movie, like a comedy from the 80s. And the cast, like we talked about, Penkin, so great. The Vicious Boss. You had William Ragsdale back, who I loved in Fright Night and Fright Night 2. Just Kirsty Swanson, like peak Kirsty Swanson. Yeah, that's my number 3 for 2022.
That was a good one. I mean, it had its moments. I mean, Stuart Penkin was awesome. He plays that role so well as the boss. That was good. I mean,
Terry Crews Terry Crews. I always confuse like his Bad News Cruise, but Terry Kaiser and his mole. That should have got like a separate
that's a whole separate thing. So yeah. You know what? And what's funny? When you said which Terry Kaiser movie, I forgot about that he was in this one. I thought you were doing Weekend at Bernie's, but I'm like, we did that last year. So I totally forgot he was in this 2 years ago. Yeah. All right. So my number 2 is Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Well, we didn't cover that. We covered Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Return to Killer Tomatoes. And you know what? This movie, like you said, it is very different than I expected it to be. I never saw it. I thought it'd be a cheesy. I didn't think it was a horror movie, but I just going to be a cheesy. But it was up there with Naked Gun and Airplane, and like it's a spoof movie. So if you're into spoof movies, you're totally going to enjoy it. There's so many like funny little scenes, and again, it's what you go into. You go into Airplane knowing that every 5 seconds is going to be another spoof. That's what this movie was, and it was entertaining. And the tomatoes, really, there's barely any tomatoes in the movie. So which it's one of the gripes I think I have. But it was a fun movie to watch and review.
All right, so these are top sequels that I like from 2022. Number 2, a movie that I've watched I think twice since we did it, because another movie that captures my youth and the years that I loved was Ghoulies Go to College. Like, I love that movie. Everything about it. Skip, Mookie, the whole gang, the guy, Matthew Lillard, who's in that movie, who's playing Storch from Animal House pretty much. But no, I just really, it's one of those movies, again, it's like a comfort film. And I think a reason that I really enjoyed even more is while I watched some of these movies that we covered before, I think about some of the things that we discussed and talked about, and it makes it even more enjoyable. Like thinking about like the comic book that's in the wall, and just I don't know, so many different things about it.
Yeah, sometimes going back and watching a movie after the review, because you'll pick up again the clothes. Now when you watch that scene, you were like, "This is so ridiculous. Why are those clothes in that pile?" No, it was a fun movie. You go into there knowing it's a fun movie. I don't know if I'd make my top 4, but it was fun. So
I'm gonna jump and say that I think we have the number. I think our. So we'll announce it together at the same time. A little drum roll. So, drum roll, please. And our top sequel 2022 is
Mirror, Mirror.
Aliens.
Aliens.
Aliens, Jamie, take it away.
Oh.
Right from the beginning of the year, it was number 1. Hard to beat.
Not only number 1 for the year. I mean, and we've had this discussion so many times, like the top 10 sequels of all time, and this is a top 10 sequel. I mean, it's
top
this
4.
Movie,
I think it's on the Mount Rushmore of sequels.
Oh, it's one of the best of all time, and the fact that we were able to cover it. I mean, unfortunately, we set the bar too high because I mean, you start the year with Aliens. You really can't go past it. So it was a downward slide since then. So, but. Aliens is just awesome. I mean, it's one of the best action movies of all time, let alone movies and sequels. So yeah, and it's one. I think it's one of the few sequels where the sequel's better than the original.
Oh, I agree. Like, I'm not saying I'm one of those people that don't like a movie that's fully story driven, because obviously the first one does have aliens and has a great cast, but just the second one, just the action in that movie is unbelievable.
Well, you can have, a sequel that's better than the first one. Doesn't mean the first one's bad. Like, again, we've discussed this. Rocky 2, I think is better than the first one. The first one has a better story, but the second one's awesome, So, same thing. I mean, this just Alien, just from start to finish. And again, Ripley making my top character, and now she, top movie. They get all the awards.
Lots of hardware for Ripley. Sigourney, come and grab your awards, but. Wow, so that was a great way of looking back at 2022. And, I think we have people that are... Oh, no, you didn't have to.
Thank you. You don't have to. Thank you.
Too kind. Okay. I don't want to stand. I don't want to stand. But, really, 2022 was still a fun year. We had some huge milestones. We had 50,000 listens. We had, so many new listeners. And, even with Spotify, they give you these stats. Like creator wise, we create this stuff because we love it, but we create it hours wise. We're in the top 96% of content out there. So there's always something to listen to when it comes to us.
And, this year, our fans that enjoy our podcast have been so interactive with us this year.
I know, I love it.
And reaching out to us and commenting on our movies or looking forward to the next one. I mean, so I want to appreciate our fans that listen. I mean, honestly, it's, what started off with being fun with us, Doug and I doing this. It's like the fact that people enjoy it makes it so much better.
Yeah, I know I forget some people, but just to name a few, you got Egan, our horror sequel extra, you got Andrew Powers, you got Nick Spurdone. And then you have our buddies like Sweet Lou, who Mr. Cop, RoboCop 3. He wants us to do Ghostbusters 2. So I want to give him a shout out. We're definitely going to try to do that in 2023. Who else we got? Rob Schnitzer, Matt, Jeffrey. Man, there's so many people that it's just so great that they reach out and, President Votto or whatever that guy's name is, man. That guy, just getting messages with some of our lines that we say or about interviews and stuff, or President Votto said, every time I introduce Jamie in the beginning, it sounds like he just ran a marathon, talking about the movies that we're going to cover. So, it's pretty fun.
You and I would be doing this if we didn't have any fans at all, right? We enjoy doing this and it's fun. But the fact that, again, that we have fans that are just commenting and just again enjoying or looking forward to it, and yes, I usually I'll do a couple push-ups and I'll run around the house a few times before, just so I'm all pumped up for the interview review.
I do like that, but so That's as we close out 2022 and then we look forward to 2023. We're going to start off with a pretty good sequel, Lethal Weapon 3. And before me and Jamie were trying to decide out of the few that we have in our back pocket, trying to decide which one we're going to start with, I think that was a good choice. And it's funny, both of us were reading the summary and we're like, wow, I don't really remember this too well. So it'd be pretty fun. And for it, I chatted with Norman Buckley, who was the editor on Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. So he had some funny stories about pitching a movie to Brian Usna, how he said how great it was working with Brian. Also talked about, because his sister was in Hollywood, how he made his trek. His mom pushed him to go out to L.A., and some cool stories. There's a lot of connections with him. Like, one of his first movies that he worked on was the late, great Lenny Von Dolen, who he lost this year. One of his first movies, and Lenny was one of our first interviews, so it's pretty sad when I heard that. But, man, Norman was so cool, man. And now he's, such a big shot. He even said, how am I at this point? Sweet Magnolia's on Netflix. He's directed 14 episodes. He's practically like a showrunner. He's involved in casting, locations, really everything. But his big thing was the OC. He edited the OC, and he's like, I'm going to leave unless you let me direct. And then, boom, they said yes. And then he became this big hotshot to go to when it comes to directing. But, yeah, Lethal Weapon 3. Jamie, are you happy that you're going to start the year off with it?
I am, but at the same time, I'm a little nervous because Lethal Weapon is, again, one of the best franchises, of all time. And we're starting off big again. So I'm afraid of, if we're starting off with Lethal Weapon, where are we going from there?
Munchie 4.
I mean, I know there's another Tomato movie out there, maybe, that we could try to get. I mean, there's a few Ghoulies, maybe, so, know. But, there's also another Mirror Mirror, I think.
There's 4 more of those. There's a lot. Now, we have a lot of the main franchises. That's our goal for this year, like a James Bond, a Star Wars, which it's sort of what we're going to be covering soon, but we're not going to talk about that. So thanks for listening in 2022. And don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast, follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.